But as I mentioned, the Berlin Wall, that's where we are right now. This is scientific freedom. This is the United Nations being exposed again and again and laughed at. All the upper echelon. The ClimateGate scandal was the United Nations climate scandal because all those scientists were all top leaders in the United Nations. But here's what I like to do in the presentation, people on global warming. All you need to know about the science of global warming is this quote. Global warming cap and trade, the most significant revenue-generating proposal of our time. That was in the Washington Post, Ben Cardin. That has been the underpinning. It's a political movement. It is not a scientific movement. How absurd have they become? This was last summer. Democrat Senator Debbie Stabenow. Global warming creates volatility. I feel it when I'm flying. The storms are more volatile. Action quote. And now we have Tom Friedman, the New York Times, saying, let's not call it global warming. Gee, is that because it's not warming anymore? Or is that because, so he calls it global weirding. So now anything that happens, they can declare it global warming. Here's another way that science has been perverted. Nobel Prize winning economists, you have to find ways to exaggerate the threat. Here's a tornado destroying a house. How desperate are they? Mainstream publication, he wishes over the next 5 or 10 years horrid things could happen. Tornadoes in the Midwest, that would get people concerned about climate change. They've reached a level of desperation, again, before ClimateGate, before all these recent scandals. This is last summer. I like to say the global warming movement was dead before ClimateGate hit. All ClimateGate did was withhold the embalming fluid, and now the corpse is rotting for us all to see. This is David Bellamy, classic example, a UK scientist, big believer in global warming, reversed himself about 2005 when all the ice core data, new scientific information came. His new line is, the science has quite simply gone awry. This was a believer who became a skeptic. It's not even science, it's anti-science. When you have people wishing for death and destruction on their fellow Americans through tornadoes, that's anti-science. Some of the other honors. I thank Accuracy in Media, but I also got some other honors here. The Rolling Stone magazine, Climate Depot, they named me one of the 17 climate killers, one of the planet's worst enemies. They call me Essential Cell, the denial machine. Again, the reference to the Holocaust, that was Greenpeace. But the media, led by Rolling Stone, a couple other outlets, ABC's Bill Blakemore, Scott Pelley of 60 Minutes, who openly won't interview any scientist skeptical of global warming because he said it would be the equivalent of interviewing a Holocaust denier if he was doing a segment on the Holocaust. This is the level of media we still have. He's still considered their top CBS climate correspondent. These are just some of the more honors named 5 criminals against humanity. All of these phrases they put in to seek intimidation. And this is what we found out in the ClimateGate emails. But there's Mother Nature fighting back. Picture the Capitol. And wait, what are those people doing? Are those protest signs? Whoa, big DC snowstorm beats largest public protest at global warming ever. We had a blizzard hit the UN conference in Copenhagen. And my favorite headline, Pelosi snowed out of DC global warming rally. Just so you know, the United Nations, these are some of the comments. The climate bill leads to global governance. We talked about the taxes. We have international bean counters, bureaucrats, chomping at the bit to regulate CO2. Because if you regulate CO2, you control everything in life. Remember what I said about the science, and we talked about the economics? Well, here's Timothy Wirth, 1988. Even if the theory is wrong, we're doing the right thing in terms of economic and environmental policy. In other words, we knew decades ago, to hell with the science. It's all about what their politics were and what their ideology was and what regulations they wanted. They didn't care about the science. This is amazing. This guy's a huge global warming believer, but he knows that the movement's solutions, most of the green stuff, verging on a gigantic scam. And this is a believer in global warming. So even the warmest believers are disgusted by the practices of the solution people that come around in Washington. You know it's bad when John McCain is bailing out of global warming. He's now claiming, and this is not made up, he just claimed a couple days ago that he didn't even support a global warming bill despite co-authoring 2, one in 2003 and 2005. He stunned his former aides with his newfound skepticism. That just goes to show you, because of the work of AIM, because of all the work of Senator Inhofe, who I owe a huge debt of gratitude for, he stood on the Senate floor. Senator Inhofe who was chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee until Barbara Boxer took over, stood on the Senate floor and called man-made global warming one of the greatest hoaxes in modern times in 2003. And you know it's now politically expedient to be a skeptic when John McCain is running scared. And it's also worse. Al Franken of Minnesota bailed out on the climate bill last August. Again, before ClimateGate. You know it's bad when Democrats like Al Franken are bailing. How bad is it? Al Gore is backed by hundreds of protesters, whether it's in Oregon, Florida. The bloom is off the rose here. It's amazing to watch this. All the local coverage in both cities was all about Gore being booed and chanted, and his silly message was ignored. Here's what I mentioned about more Americans believe in haunted houses. 37% to 36%, according to Gallup. Again, that's scientific progress. The more they try to scare us, the more it grows. But here's what I'll leave you with. The history of failed eco-alarms. We knew there was a global cooling scare in the 70s. We've had overpopulation fears. We've had the chemical fears, the Alar apples. We've had all the scares on pesticides. Resource scarcity, people predicting famines. We had the Amazon rainforest scare, which I actually did a documentary in 2000 on the Amazon rainforest. The New York Times, 9 years later, admits for every acre of rainforest cut, 50 are being regenerated. They're calling them galloping jungles. People are leaving the rural areas and in the jungles, going to cities. And they quoted a scientist saying, maybe it wasn't such an urgent cause after all. Well, gee, thanks for telling us after Sting's rainforest concerts, National Geographic specials, Disney films scaring children. But the question is, as global warming collapses, what's the next eco-scare? They always have to have one. What's up next at Matt? Anyone want to guess?
Air.
Air? Close. That's a good one.
Coffee.
Air is good. Guy's face is blue. No joke. UK Green Party test marketing the next eco-scare. There exists a more serious crisis than CO2.
The oxygen levels are dropping.
Yeah, the oxygen levels, human activity has decreased them by 1/2. This is a test market. They're trying this out. Plastics. Remember The Graduate? Plastics. Lori David, Al Gore's producer. Plastic waste is in some ways more alarming for us humans than global warming. They're already thinking ahead. Tarot cards. Why am I showing you a tarot card? Because we have insane people in high office. Energy Secretary Chu. And then he honestly said this, June 28th of last year. At no other time in the history of science have we been able to say what the future will be 100 years from now. Science is on his shoulders, speaking in his ear. He actually believes this. Imagine if we had a cabinet secretary in 1909 America saying, well, science is telling me what the world's going to be like in 2000. We'll know the climate, we'll know the energy mix of our economy, and we'll know all the resource management. He would have been laughed out of 1909 America. Today, he's taken seriously at congressional hearings. I don't understand it. And my reaction was, shouldn't Secretary Chu be touting these predictions and his certainty of the year on a boardwalk with a full deck of tarot cards? That's the level of science he's promoting here.